Welcome back to For the Home Cook. Of course, this show is all about saving money, especially on those grocery bills. As our budgets get a little bit tighter, things get more expensive. It is a great reminder, especially, if you're on a holiday break or a break where more people are around your house, to make a few meals that are going to be affordable and also filling. So today I have 3 recipes, and we are going to start over here on my left, your right. Now this is going to be a chicken or a cheesy rice and bean burrito, and it is exactly everything that I just said in the title. What I love about this recipe is it doesn't take a whole lot. All of this stuff is very cost effective, and you can make up a bunch of these. You can, put whatever you want in here. You can make it as complicated or as simple as possible, and then you can put these in the freezer and then heat them up, or you can just make a bunch at one time. So the recipe speaks for itself. So over here, I've got a can of refried beans. So all I did was just heat this up. I put a little bit of vegetable oil just to kind of loosen all of it up and make it, not this clump that comes out of the can. You could do so many things with your refried beans. You could saute some onions or some jalapenos. You can season up how you want, or you can just heat it up and call it good. Now, rice, listen, somebody did the work for you. There's this cheap package that you see in front of you. It's Spanish style rice. It cooks in 90 seconds. You can do that. If you happen to have a recipe, or maybe you have all the ingredients at home and you don't want to spend $1, $1.15 on a package, you can absolutely make it from scratch. I have a recipe. It's not that I wanted to make it, so I can buy this for a little bit more than $1 and call it good. And then we've got some tortillas and we've got some cheese. So this is as simple as it can be. You're gonna put all this together. If you wanted to make it just a little bit better, you could always cook up some ground beef, some ground chicken. You could also make these up, put them in a pan and cover them with like some chili or some enchilada sauce and put them in the oven. So a lot of different ways that you can make this, not just simple 3 ingredients, put it in a tortilla and call it good. But if you're looking at a budget, I'm gonna make 8 of these, and it's gonna be, I think I spent like $6 total. And I will tell you that the most I spent was gonna be on the tortillas and the cheese, because the cheese was $2, the tortillas were almost $2. That's 4 out of the 6 that you're just doing on that. So like I said, it's super, super simple. I'm just gonna put one of these together so you can kind of see what's going on. I have some parchment paper here. This is gonna be your best option when you're putting these together. And then you can put all of these into either a Ziploc bag or some foil to put them in the freezer. You can put them in the freezer for actually a few months, but you can take these out. The reason why we put them in parchment is later on when we go to take these out and we put them in the microwave, the parchment is going to, once they start to reheat, it's gonna trap all the moisture into the parchment paper, and it's gonna reheat everything to where you're not going to get like a crunchy, stale tortilla. You're going to get something that's actually edible if you decide to put these into the freezer. Now, I don't know about you guys. I see people that are like, here's the proper way to wrap a burrito. Listen, as long as it doesn't fall out, I'm good to go. So you can put as much or as little of this as you want. Obviously, we're going to try to fill up 8 tortillas, so you would want to split this. But even if you doubled your, rice and beans, it's still only going to add about $2 to your grocery bill for this one. To still make 8. And these are big tortillas, so you could even make them smaller. You don't have to make them this size, but you absolutely can. So you can see these are not like super, super huge. If you had ground beef or ground chicken, you could fill these up to the max capacity and then call it good. These are just kind of the perfect size. You could also add in, if you have any enchilada sauce, whether you have a recipe or you just grab a can of enchilada sauce, you could also do that and put some enchilada sauce in here. Anything that you would want into a burrito. And if you think of like that one, fast food place that has a cheesy bean and rice burrito, everything that you would want in that, you can absolutely put into your own. And it's not gonna cost you as much or a whole lot. So listen, we're doing saves over here. We're saving lives. Okay, so this is for my second recipe that we're going to talk about here in a sec. But once again, so you'll just do that. You can put those in the freezer into a Ziploc bag, or you can put them in some foil and then put them in the freezer. You can also put them in the fridge. I wouldn't do that for too long, more than like maybe a day, because I just don't want the tortilla to get soggy. If you really wanted to make these even better, you could get out a skillet or You know, if you have like a comal or a skillet, you can get that out and put the burrito on there and kind of seal and toast the outside of it. I love doing that with pretty much any burrito that I'm making. So that's also a good way that you can kind of make this better than just what it is. All right, so that's our first recipe. Like I said, it cost me about less than $7 to make 8 burritos. You could add $2 more if you really want to fill them up. And then your cost for like meat or anything else that you buy would obviously bring that up. So we've talked before about those staples that you can base your recipes on that are going to be very cost effective. One of those is pasta. Pasta is super, super cheap, and you can do a lot of different things with pasta. And that's what I love about its cost values, because you can make it as simple or as complex as you like. So this is going to be super, super simple, especially in those times where, you know, you don't want to cook, maybe a lot's going on, you work a lot of hours, or any of those things where you're like, I just don't want to spend all day cooking. This is a perfect recipe for that. So I've got some rigatoni. This is a 16-ounce box. It cost $1, which is wonderful. So I've got that boiling. It'll cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. It's been on for maybe 4-ish. So we'll let this cook, and then all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you, and then once we get the pasta cooked, then I'll show you what it looks like after. This is literally all that we're gonna do, okay? So I have a jar of Alfredo sauce. I have a jar of pasta sauce. Now, you could just put in the pasta sauce, put in some cheese, put it in a pan, call it good. That's fine. I don't know if you've ever actually mixed Alfredo sauce and like a pasta or a marinara sauce. It's really, really good. So that's what we're gonna do with this one. If for some reason you have family members who maybe don't like one or the other, you could even get a second pan, split this up, and then split it up to making one Alfredo and one just regular marinara or pasta sauce. But we're gonna add both of them together. So I'm gonna let this pasta cook for a few more minutes, and then we'll drain this. We will put it back into the pan so that it kind of gets all of the extra water out of it. And then we're gonna add in both of our sauces. Now this is completely up to you. So if you don't want a lot of Alfredo sauce, don't put a whole lot. If you want a bunch, then put more of that than you would with the pasta sauce. And what we're doing is whatever you would serve, like if you put it in there and then you would just serve this to your family at night, we're gonna do that, but just a little bit more moisture. And then we're gonna put it into a pan. We're gonna add some Parmesan cheese. You can do mozzarella cheese as well. I'm gonna put some in it, and then once we put it in the pan, I'm gonna put some on top. We'll pop that into the oven at 350. You'll go about 25, 30 minutes until everything's cooked. Everything is warmed through most likely. So you just want that cheese to melt. You want everything to go and like just mix and be happy together. You can season this however you want. So obviously I would be doing some salt. Be careful on your salt because you're gonna have salt content in both of your sauces. Obviously pepper, I love garlic, I love onion. And so those would be what I put in there. But you also can put like Italian seasoning or oregano or parsley, any of those things to kind of make it taste better than just pasta and noodles and cheese, but at the end of the day, that's still a great combination. So this one, I only spent, I think it was right around $8.20 is what I spent on this meal. And it's gonna make, I mean, you have 16 ounces of pasta. So that is, if you think 4 ounces or 2 ounces, I think a serving size is 2 ounces. So technically this is gonna be for 8 people if you go by serving size, but obviously people will eat more or less of that. And so this only cost me about $8. You could make this better if you have some leftover chicken that's in the freezer that you've been just trying to figure out what to do with. You could also put that in here and kind of make like a chicken Alfredo type thing. If you have like some leftover meatballs or some ground beef, you could also use those and put them in there and then make this even better than it is. And that's what I love. If you just go into your freezer, go into your pantry and see what you have, you can base a lot of recipes on that. So I know sometimes we'll get a bunch of chicken and we don't eat it all, and then it's just kind of sitting in the freezer. Go ahead and get that out and put it in this dish. Use up all of those things that are in the freezer. That way you're not spending extra money on groceries if you have to. So we'll come back to this one, but I want to go to this third recipe. So I love anything slow cooker. If I can put anything in a slow cooker, I'm going to do that. It takes away so much time if you just prep your stuff, or if you get things that you can just kind of dump into your slow cooker and let it go for the day. Absolutely love that. So this is going to be a creamy chicken tortilla soup. So what I've done so far is it starts with onions, jalapenos, and garlic. So you can saute these. The recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of butter, and you're supposed to saute the onions and the jalapenos for about 5 minutes, throw in your garlic there at the last minute, and then let all of that cook for about 6 minutes. And then you can put it in a pot. If you do it in a pot, it's gonna take you about, I would say 30 to 35 minutes total for this recipe. So you can do that. So it kind of takes up, if you're coming home from work or if you need something done within an hour, you can do this in a pot. Like I said, I love a slow cooker. I love that I can put this on in the morning or put it on at noon, and then you come back and you have your dish ready. So I did not saute the onions, jalapenos, and garlic. You can. It's going to add some really, really great flavor. If you have those caramelized onions and jalapenos, you can do that. You don't have to. So I put those here at the bottom because then everything else, we're going to put some chicken in here. And so our kind of seasoning for our chicken is going to be the onions, jalapenos, garlic, and then the other seasonings that we put in here. And you're just going to kind of build up those layers. So I've got some chicken breast. It calls for 2 cups of shredded chicken or 2 chicken breasts. I've got the tenderloin, so I think there's like 6 or 7 in here. Just whatever chicken you can afford. So if it's not exactly 2 cups, that's okay. If it's a little more than 2 cups, that's okay. If you want to do chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts, that's absolutely okay as well. Whatever is affordable for you. I actually found one that was on like the please cook it now or forever hold your peace. And so that's what I'm using because I saved almost $3 on this entire package. We're gonna put it into the slow cooker and it's gonna cook. All right, so I'm gonna open this and I'm gonna put this in second because then we're gonna add all of our other flavors and our seasonings on top of that. So I wanna get, a really good base of our onion and jalapeno first, and then we'll put in our chicken. And this is all going to cook together. So in the slow cooker, your chicken you can do for 4 hours on high and 6 hours on low. So it just depends on how much time you want to be spending before you can actually come in here and shred your chicken. Okay, I am going to wash my hands. If you're a person who you don't like all the weird stuff that comes on chicken, like, the tendons and the veins and all the weird parts and the fat and stuff like that, you can absolutely put this out on a cutting board and cut up and cut off all of those things. You can also just throw it in there, and then when you go to shred it, you can kind of look through and see if any of that is something that you don't want to put back into your slow cooker. It's really up to you. I know some people who are like, absolutely not, everything's getting taken out, or you have those people who are just like, it doesn't bother me. You do you. So I see some parts of the chicken in here that maybe I don't want left into my slow cooker later. So when I go to shred this, I'm definitely gonna be looking out for those things to cut off. All right, so I've got that. So seasoning wise, we're gonna make this really, really simple. The first thing I have is tomato paste. So tomato paste is very, very cost effective, but I feel like you only need a certain amount and then all of a sudden you're left with like a whole thing of tomato paste for no reason. So if that happens, get some parchment paper, dollop it out into tablespoons, and then separate it and put it into the freezer. And then, if this were straight from the freezer, you could just plop out a tablespoon of this. I didn't do that very effectively, but you only need a tablespoon. So you could plop out some of this and then put the rest of it back into the freezer. That way you're not wasting it. It's one of those, like it's 49 cents for a whole thing of tomato paste. So I don't feel like I'm wasting too much if you just toss the rest of it. But obviously your household, your rules. If you don't want to waste it, just put it on some parchment into like individual little sections. Put it in the freezer, just kind of how we do garlic in bulk, and then call it good. So I'm also going to add in 2 packets of taco seasoning, and I know that sounds like a lot. This is a very big soup. I actually ran out of room when I made this the other day, so it's not too much of seasoning. If you don't want to get taco seasoning, you can absolutely just do the seasoning that you would normally put into like taco seasoning. So you're thinking cumin and chili powder, those sorts of spices, you could absolutely do that in here as well. So I'm gonna put that on top of the chicken. That way we're seasoning that chicken as we go along. I'm also gonna add some other seasonings. So I'm gonna add a little bit of cayenne. If you don't like hot stuff, you can skip this. And I'm not adding, I mean, it's like, it's not that much at all. And you can adjust your spices. So obviously you have the jalapeno in there, so it's going to be quote unquote a little bit spicy. So you could just leave it as is and don't do cayenne, or you can add a little bit more. You can also wait until your chicken's done and then taste the broth and then be like, okay, I want a little bit more, or no, I'm not going to add any. I'm also going to add some cumin. So there is some in the taco seasoning, but I like cumin. I like the flavor. So I'm going to throw that in there as well. And then I have some chicken bouillon. So this, add into everything. Just put it into everything and be happy. So this is also going to add some flavor. And then last but not least, I've got some, this is basically like chili powder. Let's see, paprika, garlic, chili powder. It's got a little bit of sugar, some onion powder. So all of those kind of seasonings that we're seeing into the taco seasoning, we're going to add in there as well. You can never have too much garlic in my opinion, so I'm probably going to add just a little bit more garlic. I'm going to go easy on the salt for a few reasons. One, because we have all these seasonings in here. Some of these probably have some salt. Depending on what vegetables that you add in here, that will probably have salt. And then your chicken broth is probably going to have some salt in it. And so as to not over salt this, we'll wait on the salt. And I'm also going to add some pepper. All right, so we've got our seasonings down. So now let's add in our vegetables. So what I've got here is 2 cans of black beans, the no salt added, and then 2 cans of whole kernel corn. If you can find like a reduced sodium or a no salt added, absolutely go that route. But if not, you're just going to drain these, rinse off the black beans, and then we're going to add those in there. And we're almost to the top of our slow cooker. So this is the time that we're going to start kind of adjusting what we do here. Now I've got 2 cans of tomatoes and green chilies. I got 1 regular and 1 mild. Once again, you've got some spice going on in there anyway. So if you like really spicy stuff, get the mild. If you're unsure, or if you have people in your house that don't like spicy, just get the regular. You can always adjust those seasonings later. If you don't like to get this, you can also just add some tomatoes and some green chilies on their own. If you're like, that's too many tomatoes, cool. Just add 1 and add some more green chilies if you want. It's really up to you. Okay, and then from here, we're gonna add in, it says 5 cups of chicken broth. I'm gonna tell you right now, 5 cups is not fitting into the slow cooker. So if you have this size, which I think is one of the bigger sizes, just adjust with your chicken broth. If you have a bigger one, obviously you can add all 5 cups. But we're just going to add as much as we can. If you have a big pot, then you can add all 5 cups. So we're just going to stir this. Obviously, don't taste any of this because you have raw chicken in the bottom. We're going to stir this around. We're going to add our chicken broth, and then we're going to let this go. So like I said, 4 hours. And because these pieces of chicken are kind of small, you can probably check it in about 2.5 hours. And just check the chicken and make sure that you temp it, and that you can also just shred it, and if it shreds easy, it's cooked. But you want to temp it and make sure that it's at 165 before you try the sauce and before you take your chicken out to shred it. So this is this has 4 cups of broth. I'm gonna get close to that. I mean, like when I made this, the lid was like touching sauce. That's how much liquid we had to put in here. Okay, so that's in a good spot. We can always add some later. And as we go through this process, if you see for some reason that you have some extra room, go ahead and add the rest of your broth. You can also at the end, when you're serving this up right before, add more broth. The broth is going to extend how much of this that you're making. So obviously this is a big slow cooker and it's almost to the top. If you're like, I want to feed 2 more people, 3 more people, whatever, extend this meal past however many servings this is, then you can do that. You can add more broth. So we're going to let this go 4 hours on high, 6 hours on low. And then once we get to that point where chicken is done, you're going to take the chicken out, let it cool for just a sec, and then shred it. While you're shredding that, the only other things that we're going to add in here are 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Now, These are the more expensive items in this recipe, so you can take or leave a few of these. So most recipes don't call for heavy cream, but because we're doing a creamy chicken tortilla soup, you want that creaminess factor. And so we'll put a half a cup of heavy cream in here. You can skip that. Heavy cream is not, you know, the most affordable of things. So if you want to skip the heavy cream, that's perfectly fine. When you take your chicken out, we'll put it on low. And if it's in a pot, you'll put it on low and you'll start sprinkling in a cup and a half of shredded cheese. If you want to shred your own cheese, absolutely go ahead. The cheese in the bag, it has this coating on it so it doesn't melt as easy. So if you want to shred up your own cheese, go ahead. If you want, just put your cheese in here, whatever shredded cheese you go with, stir it up. And then we're also going to add half a cup of room temperature cream cheese, and that's going to bring out that creaminess as well. Once again, the cream cheese and the heavy cream, if you don't want to spend the money on that, this is going to be just fine without it. But if you want like that creamy factor, then you can get those two and you can add those into your soup. Once you're done, you'll let that go. You'll let the cheese melt, let everything kind of warm back up, put your chicken back in there. And then when you serve this, you can serve this in so many different ways. Obviously, you can just make it plain on its own. What I did is get some avocado. So you don't need a whole lot. You can kind of cut that up into small cubes and maybe get 2. That's like $1. And now everyone can have some avocado. Cilantro is super, super cheap. It's also really good. So I can throw that on top as well. And the thing that I spent some money on, and you do not have to do this, are these tortilla strips. So these were a little bit over $1. But this is going to add crunch. You can also just get some tortilla chips and crunch those on top. It's just a crunch factor. It's not necessary for the recipe, but it does add some crunch. It adds like another element to it. So you can do that if you want to. I'm going to wipe out our strainer because now we're going to do this pasta. Let's finish up this pasta recipe. So you do want your pasta to cook a minute or 2 less than what the box says. And that's because we're about to put it in the oven. And so you don't want to overcook it by cooking it completely and then having to cook it for another 20 minutes. So if you're about a minute or 2 shy, that's perfectly fine. So we're going to get out as much water as possible. I'm going to attempt to pour all of the noodles back into the pot. I don't have many successes, but that was one of them. All right, so we're gonna put it back in the pot. That is going to start to dry out all the rest of that water. Obviously we have rigatoni. There's probably water, all sorts of trapped everywhere into this pot or into the noodles. So just give them a stir, let all of that water, if you wanna leave a little bit of pasta water, you can do that as well. All right, now we're just gonna start pouring. So I'm gonna start with half, and then I'm gonna see where we are. Once again, if you like a lot of Alfredo sauce, then you would just reverse what we're doing here. If you don't like it at all, don't get it. But we're gonna add both. And this is all eyeball. There are some measurements below in the recipe. You can obviously follow those if you want to, or you can just eyeball it. Once again, we're looking for whatever you would serve to your family and then just a little bit more. What a great sound that pasta makes. Okay, so there's that, just a little bit more. Let's also go ahead and season it. So we're gonna do some salt. I like a lot of pepper in any of my pasta dishes, whether it's, you know, spaghetti or lasagna or any pasta dish. Love pepper. Macaroni and cheese, love it. I also love a lot of garlic. I don't know if you guys have noticed in any of these episodes. I love garlic. There will be a lot of it in there. Okay, and then the last thing, I'm kind of looking through what we have here. So this one's called pizza seasoning, and that's gonna have everything that I want in here in terms of Italian seasoning. So I'm also going to add a little bit of that. And then you'll want to taste this. You also want to, don't just put everything in there and then immediately put it into the pan, because what's happening in here is that the noodles are starting to absorb some of that sauce. And so check before you pour it into the pan that it has enough sauce, so that it doesn't dry out when you put it into the oven. I'm gonna get a spoon. I'm gonna try this. I'm notorious for either over salting or under salting and never perfectly salting. So I'm usually salty in life, not in my food. That's a problem. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. Also, don't forget your cheese. Cheese is an important part of life. Your cheese, especially Parmesan, is also going to have some salt. So if you taste it and you're like, it needs a little bit more, add the cheese and then see what happens. So hopefully you'll try out some of these and make them, see if you like them. But the name of the game is to make sure that we are saving money on our grocery bill. That's the whole point of this show. And so these are some great recipes to do that. So for now, we will see you next time on For the Home Cook. Hope you enjoyed it.